this is Oscar Mikey and welcome to this multi-part Granada Re-Reconquista Ironman achievement run. These videos aim to demonstrate a reliable way to win as Granada whilst earning the Granada achievement. I'm Oscar Mike and as always, thanks for watching. Alright, first let's quickly go through the opening. Set our national focus into administrative, convert our faction leader into a general, mothball all fortifications, assign a clergy estate to Jabal Tariq, demand administrative support and military support from our estate's interaction, set our rival as Tlemcen, take a merchant, move him from the Tunis trade node to Sevilla, low army maintenance 0, pick our mission, the rival of our rival, construct 2 trade ships, and send the remainder of our transport ships to Maria and mothball them. Send the trade ships out collecting trade, improve relations with Tunis, and start fabricating a claim on Tlemcen's capital, Tala Isman. And then we'll start the clock, and finally let's recruit 2 Muslim archer infantry units from Jabal Tariq once we have the money. So, out of all the guides I produced, this has been... Oh, we have an heir, Muhammad. Okay, well... That's actually extremely good getting an heir so early on, and he seems reasonably competent, so we'll go ahead and take him, not that we have a choice. Out of all the guides I produced, this so far has been by far and away the most difficult, the most complicated, and to put it bluntly, the most rage-inducing. We have had a lot of problems producing this guide, so I'm improving relations with Tunis, and I offer an alliance with them. I'll also complete our mission, and I'll increase army maintenance, and I'll start ferrying my troops from Granada over to Tunis. And then finally I'll offer an alliance with Morocco. Now, the order here is important. You want to ally Tunis before you ally Morocco, because if you don't, Morocco will not, Tunis won't, if you ally Morocco first, Tunis won't accept the alliance because you will be already allied to one of Tunis's rival, that being Morocco. So we're just ferrying our troops over to Tunis, and I appreciate the start of this guide is necessarily fast-paced, but it is a sort of a multi-tiered, multifaceted guide that can be a bit complicated, so I'm just making sure I have all the essential precepts down before I sort of discuss the strategy more generally. So we're transporting those troops over now. So again, ally Tunis before you ally Morocco. We're going to need both as allies for the early portion of this guide to work. So yes, this is certainly a rage-inducing guide, and so for that reason I would suggest you tread lightly. This may not be for you. Granada starts are absolutely infuriating. There's so many things that can go wrong. Give you an example, the Iberian wedding. That would be a particularly atrocious event to fire. So we're just taking our trade ships that we built, sending them to protect trade in the Sevilla trade node, and we're fabricating claim and Dara now, and improving relations with Morocco. Yep, rage-inducing. You have to be a masochist to want to do this, but this guide will enable you to complete the Re-Reconquista achievement, which is highly coveted. So we're going to declare war on Tlemcen. It's an offensive war. We will call in Morocco, but only contingent upon promising them territory. You can see me do that there. So I declare war, immediately move my troops with selected attached to this unit over to Orsenius. And Morocco will engage in Ujda. That's exactly what we want. They'll take the brunt of the Tlemcen army. We just beeline straight for the capital, Talisman. It's absolutely critical that we control that siege. With me so far? Well, if you are, good job. So, what will happen is the Moroccans will either win or lose. If they win the battle, the Tlemcen army will retreat to Dara, in which case we take 7,000 troops, with 1,000 ensuring that we maintain control over the siege, head to Dara ourselves, and we'll be able to stack right that army. There we go. Okay, so that's the Tlemcen army effectively dealt with. Now there's 2 things you have to be very careful about at this point. Make sure that you quickly control the occupations of Tlemcen's eastern provinces, because oftentimes when you wipe out the Tlemcen army, Tunis will declare war as well and attempt to sort of take part of their territory. So we're going to ensure that we quickly occupy the eastern Tlemcen provinces. So we spread our troops out, 1,000 troops in every province, and we're going to start shipping troops over to Morocco because we can't attack Figu because there's a fortification debarring movement. And there you go. We are ferrying those troops over. I believe Tunis did just declare war, but that's fine. Again, we have control over those provinces, so now we're just massing up our forces. Fighting a naval battle there. See, we did get a breach in the fortifications, which will help the siege. So again, make sure that the Tlemcen cavalry unit that they just recruited is currently boxed in and isn't able to regain control of any of the provinces. Now, we do want total control. We want to have a full annexation. We don't actually want to give Morocco any provinces as part of a peace treaty. That will harm your trust rating with them. It will oftentimes precipitate them to rescind their alliance with you, but that's actually what we want, because this strategy revolves around expanding very quickly and declaring war on Morocco soon. So Tlemcen attacks, so does Morocco, and Morocco actually loses. That's really good news for us, because when that cavalry unit is fully reinforced, it will be able to retake control of Oujda from the Moroccans, then we simply move in and take the province for ourselves. So this has more or less been a flawless execution of this strategy. Literally everything has gone exactly as we would like. So just going to wait for that unit to reinforce. 1446 already. It is a fast-paced guide as usual. Again, in terms of the difficulty level, this blows all my other guides out of the water. This guide is genuinely hard to pull off. I probably spent more time producing this than all my other previous guides in the last, I don't know, 2 months. So it's been a painstaking effort, but I'm convinced that this guide is rock solid now. Been able to replicate it, and I'm pretty happy with how things are going. And this is, as I say, a flawless execution. There are so many other little things that I'll fail to mention, simply because I've done this so many times, I take everything for granted. But necessarily, you want to adhere to these steps as close as possible. If you see me do something in a particular order, assume you should do the same. So, there we go. There's our peace with... we've won the war effectively, so we can sue for peace. And we'll accept full annexation and seek to acquire as many ducats as we can from them. We'll get 44, that'll push our war score up to 100. Excellent. Alright, terrific. Flawless execution so far, but there's no let up yet. Now, our trust rating with Morocco has plummeted. Like I said, don't worry about that at all. This strategy, we need to acquire that gold mine in Morocco, so we're going to have to declare war at them soon rather than later in order for this strategy to work. So we picked the mission, protect our brethren in Lagut. That's why we didn't select a mission earlier. Very important, you remember that. We picked that mission up once the war's over, and then immediately, almost immediately, once our troops are rallied up into territory, immediately declare war on Mazab. We have to do that quickly so that they don't ally with Tunis. If they do, you're not going to be able to declare war on them. So we stack out that army, move into Mazab, simply siege down the fortification and occupy their provinces. Yep. And we're focusing on coing, but only coing when war exhaustion is low. Mothballing all fortifications while we're at war to ensure that we keep control of as much money as possible. So let me see if I can talk about, now that we've got a little bit of downtime as we complete these sieges, some of the steps I made. Very important that you replicate my army movement paths exactly, because if you don't, sometimes when you declare war on Tlemcen, Morocco will actually get to their capital before you do, in which case they control the siege and you're basically screwed, so you have to restart. So try and replicate my army movements insofar as possible. I'm not going to have to... I mean, you'll figure it out, basically, doing this strategy. You won't be able to get this down in your first attempt. So, we're improving relations with Morocco. If we keep our relations reasonably high, we'll be able to maintain control over the alliance, even though our trust rating has plummeted. Alright, force religion. Take ducats, and there's another nation. Now, you see here Turgut, who's our next target, and Gerd, who will be our final target. Togut is currently allied with Tunis. Now that's a problem, but there is a way to circumvent that, and I'll be showing you that in the meantime. Sorry, in due course. But for now, we've expanded as fast as we can. If you'd done this even faster and better than I had, you might be able to declare war on Togut immediately by taking a mission, but we weren't able to replicate that this time. So for the meantime, focusing on coring, and I suppose we've got rebels, so we're going to have to deal with those rebels as well. Okay, so rebels, increase autonomy or not increase autonomy. If you're still allied with Morocco and Tunis, don't increase autonomy, because they will actually lend support when it comes to dealing with the rebels. Make sure you give them both military access. When rebels spawn, Tunis and Morocco will help you out, and with their support you'll be able to deal with them. That allows you to keep your autonomy incredibly low, which boosts your total naval and land force limits and increases your income. Another thing you saw I did here is I took a theologian. It's going to reduce my revolt risk by -2, which is going to slow down these rebel factions from rising up, which is pretty good news for us. Yeah, 1448. We're just focusing now on boosting relations, preparing for these rebels. Now, truce timer will shortly expire with Castile, and when it does, no doubt Castile will seek to declare war on us as soon as possible. Another thing I do here, only want to select one rival at this stage. I'm going to rival Portugal, because Morocco and Tunis do likewise, and that means you get a positive 25 bonus relations with either faction for having a similar rival. And since our naval force limits are 17, I decided to go ahead and build 3 galleys. Now, we're not going to be able to contest Castile and Portugal navally unless both Morocco and Tunis join us in a defensive alliance. If either one decides to renege on their alliance with us, then you'll keep your ships mothballed in your African ports and will do nothing with them in the future war. Alright, I'm just speeding up time here. Now, this is something that always happens. Pretender rebels always rise in Morocco. Sometimes Morocco is able to deal with them incredibly quickly. Other times these rebels will simply go on the rampage through Morocco for like 20 or 30 years. Which would be problematic, because if Morocco have active rebels in their own country, they're less likely to join you in dealing with rebels in your country. As you can see, Morocco was able to deal with them fairly quickly. That's good news for us, because that means when the rebels rise in our occupied provinces, they will lend a little bit of support. Making sure I'm offering military access to both Tunis and Morocco. So again, guide still fairly fast paced for these opening phases. Later on it'll slow down a bit and things will become slightly slower pace, but also you know, we'll approach crossroads where we'll have decisions that we can make one way or another, and that's going to really rely upon your better judgment. But so far we've completed our first objective, which is expand aggressively in Africa, ensuring we accrue as much ducats as we can from these peace treaties. Here the rebels come. You see I parked my army in Tunis because I don't want the rebels to spawn when our army's low maintenance and immediately stack wipe our army. Also again, keep your ships mothballed in your African provinces, not in Granada, because if Spain declares war on you and sieges down your fortifications, that will eject your ships into the Gulf of Maria or the Straits of Gibraltar, in which case the Spanish Navy will easily be able to destroy it. Also be wary of your trade ships. I'll be able to show you an indicator when Castile's about to declare war on you imminently, and when they show this tail, you're going, okay. So, like I was saying, look what has suddenly appeared in Gênes. 18,000 Castile troops. Now, that looks slightly foreboding. We know that the truce time over Castile has expired, and I'll just tell you that anytime you see 18,000 Spanish troops appear in Gênes or Murcia, that means a declaration of war is imminent. So there's a few steps we're going to have to take. Number one, take our trade ships and ensure you put them to port. Whatever you do, do not forget about your trade ships, otherwise you'll lose them in the first opening phases of war. Second thing I'd recommend doing, recruit a Muslim archer infantry unit in Granada. Now what we want to do is sell our provinces, as many as we can, to Castile. It depends. Sometimes Castile will declare war on you straight away, other times later. If they declare war on you later, when you sell Maria, which is the first province you should attempt to sell, you can get as much as 250 ducats from them. As it is, it looks like their treasury's been depleted somewhat, so we're pretty much going to have to sell it off at a great discount. 150 for 47 ducats isn't much. You can get a lot more, but Castile's just opted to be extremely aggressive as part of its playthrough, so we're going to wait until the end of the month, see if we can get a tiny bit more. Pause. And let's go ahead and sell this province now for 153 ducats. We'll take it. And what would you know, on literally the day after selling the province, instant declaration of war from Castile. So if I had not paused one day on that particular day, if I waited one more day, this playthrough would be screwed, because you cannot successfully fight Castile if they're able to occupy both Almeria, Gibraltarique, and the capital Granada. So here's a little trick. We've got all our ships currently in a fleet. Marco abrogated our peace treaty because we have low trust rating with him. That was entirely anticipated, so we'll go ahead and start fabricating claims on Marco. We do have a truce timer with Marco as a result of them rescinding the alliance. So we're not worried about them insta-declaring war on us. Now here come the rebels. Oh goodness, right. Perfect timing there, 19,000 troops, but like I said, even though Morocco's no longer an ally, we gave both Tunis and Morocco military access, so if you notice, they're going to go ahead and send their troops to help you deal with these rebels. Now, why did I recruit 1,000 troops in my capital? Well, all I wanted to do was scorched earth my capital, Granada. That'll delay the siege significantly. And then I just take that infantry unit and send it to Almeria, Murcia, and see if I can occupy a few provinces, do as much as I can. In the meantime, Morocco and Tunis is going to help us out with these rebels, which is good news for us. There you can see they're going to go ahead and attack Iran, and we'll support them, make sure we deal with these rebels. That's just our focus. We got our fleets in our ports, so they're safe. Tunis is allied with us, but we're not going to be able to mount any sort of successful defense of our Iberian holdings, so we're just going to buy time. Luckily, we got those ducats from Castile before they declared war. It's going to boost our treasury sufficiently, allow us to fight this war. So Morocco's actually losing that battle. We wait until Morocco's suffered as many casualties as they can, and then we'll go ahead, move in and mop up those rebels. Also, another thing to note, very important, I actually didn't mothball my fortifications before Castile declared war on me. Around 1447, 1448, make sure all your fortifications are fully active, especially in Tlemcen, because those rebels will spawn, and if you've got a mothball fortification, then you're going to have to, if the rebels spawn, they'll gain control of the province, you're going to have to siege down those provinces. So, we take our troops and we're going to defeat those rebels. Yep. There we go, Tunis did join us, otherwise there's no way we'd be able to defeat those types of rebels. And rebels successfully dealt with. So, as you can see, our capital's still in a very good position. We were able to scorch earth, which boosts the defensiveness of that province. Also, important to note that that fortification is a level 3 fortification in a mountainous province, which gives it insanely high defensive values. Okay, so we got an accepted culture group due to successfully coring. Now here's a little trick. I mentioned that Togut was allied with Tunis, which meant if we declare war with him, that would trigger a defensive alliance with Tunis. However, because we're currently at war in a defensive alliance with Tunis, if we declare war on Togut, Tunis will not answer the call to arms, because like I said, we're already fighting a war with Tunis, which means that we can actually, as a result of Castile declaring war, take over these 3 provinces that we otherwise wouldn't be able to. If we weren't at war in an alliance with Tunis, like I said, Tunis would fight to defend Togut from you. So that's good news for us. That's going to be 3 extra provinces we're going to be able to conquer. So that's the trick I was mentioning earlier that we were able to execute. Alright, for the meantime it's just sieging down these fortifications. I see Tunis is going to do something very helpful, which is actually attack the Portuguese province of... I wonder if that's Ceuta or Ceuta. Could be either one, but they're going to go ahead and siege down that fortification. Which will help, I guess. And typically at this phase in the strategy, like I said, Castile will always declare war on you, more or less. Sometimes it'll come sooner, other times it'll be later, but they'll declare war on you and it's something you're going to have to deal with. In an ideal playthrough, they'd declare war a little later and we'd be able to actually sell both Almeria and Jebel Tariq to Castile for around 350 ducats in total, in which case we'd be in a far stronger position. But like I said, so far things are going more or less fine. Another thing I forgot to mention, our air was reasonably decent. Remember our air, Muhammad, we got in the first year? Getting a good air is pretty important. If you get an air with sub, 8 or 7 stats, I'd almost recommend abandoning the attempt and trying to restart. So we're going to have to increase autonomy now because we can no longer rely upon Tunis and Morocco helping us with these rebels. So we basically increase autonomy in a lot of these provinces, make sure we don't have any rebels spawning. Now, just as we declare war on Togut, Gafsa and Gadme, or whatever the heck that province is called, we have the potential to annex them as well. They will also ally with Tunis or the Mamelukes, but they tend to ally with the Mamelukes later and then usually are subjugated by the Mamelukes in the form of vassalization. However, if we're able to ensure that Castile doesn't successfully siege down our capital, then we can declare war on them without Tunis joining the call to arms, because again we're currently allied with Tunis in a defensive war. Another thing to note, if Castile does declare war on you later or have them sooner, sometimes you'll be able to actually transfer your capital to Oran or Talisman. I'd recommend either one. Personally, I prefer Oran. And if you can do that, while selling Jebel Tariq and Almeria, you might actually be able to hold on and sue for a white peace. However, changing a capital costs 200 administrative upon you. As you can see, we're nowhere near that goal yet, so Castile would have to declare war on you in the mid-1450s in order for you to be able to transfer your capital. Now, unfortunately, they get a breach in our fortifications, so that means we're not going to be able to successfully fabricate or claim in Gafsa, that you can see I'm doing, which means we're not going to be able to conquer that the final Eastern independent African kingdom. Which is a shame, but not everything's going to go our way. We've been getting reasonably okay with a lot so far. One of the advantages of losing this war to Castile is it actually gives us a free capital transfer. Obviously we're not going to win this war. We'll sue for peace before they're able to take our capital. You can see here what I've actually done. I had around 250 ducats. If I had sued for peace, at that point, Castile would have requested all 256 of those ducats. So what I did was I just constructed 6 trade ships that burnt down my money, sued for peace with Castile, gave them my capital in Jebel Tariq, which ensured that we get a free capital transfer, and in addition to that, we don't give Castile something insane like 256 ducats. We just use that money to build trade ships, and then I'll later on go ahead and cancel some of those trade ships. That's a neat little trick you can do. Anytime you're at war with someone, if they're requesting like your treasury and you're losing the war, then just burn your treasury and building trade ships, and they'll no longer have access to it. Now, our capital moved to Oran. That's fine. I'm sure a lot of people would rather have their capital be Talisman, which has the the trade power modification, but personally I prefer Iran. Why? Because Iran has lower development costs, because it is a floodplains or something like that. Can't actually remember what. Okay, so that's quite bad news. Our king died a little sooner than we would like, and we've been forced into a regency council. And our heir is currently 7 years old. Okay, so that's both good and bad. I would have rather declared war on Morocco a lot sooner. You can see Portugal declared war on Morocco. This would be an ideal time to declare war on them whilst they're at war with Portugal. Unfortunately, our king dying has sort of frustrated our plans. But, you know, you can't win them all. Good news is you don't exactly want that king hanging around for a long time, because the stats are abysmally weak. So what I do is I go ahead and assign a Merchants Guild estate to Tlemcen. That's one of the advantages of having our capital as Oran. It means you can't obviously give an estate to a capital province. Assigning a merchant's estate to Tlemcen as trade power modifiers is extremely good. And I'm focusing now on getting my loyalty with all my estates up above 60%. Additionally, whilst we're dealing with high unrest, we can give clergy estates, which reduces our total revolt risk. So the good thing about our king dying so quickly is our king is really rather weak, as you will notice as a Granada playthrough. He has, I think, a combined total of 4 stats, I think, which is really rather poor. So having him die quickly means we'll get our heir much quicker. Downside, again, we basically can't do anything for the next 6 or 7 years, whilst our heir is, I believe, 8 years old now. So that's both a good thing and a bad thing. So right now, we're just focusing on coring, lowering revolt risk, getting our estates all up to 60% loyalty. Once we complete all our cores, we'll have full accepted culture groups. The 3 culture groups in this part of North Africa are Berber, Algerian, and what's the final one? Why can't I remember? Whatever, here's a decision collecting taxes. Yeah, Moroccan, Berber, and Algerian, I think it is. So we got our theologian. Good, all our loyalty levels are above 60%. We're getting those cores. We will probably have to increase autonomy to deal with these rebels, but for now, we're just speeding up time, waiting for the next phase of the strategy. I'm hoping that the war Morocco is currently engaged with Portugal sort of drags on. The weaker Morocco gets, the easier it's going to be able to easier we're going to be able to conquer Morocco. Why do we have to declare war on Morocco early, and why not keep them as an ally? Okay, I'm not sure if you've noticed yet, but all the provinces we've conquered, with the exception of Talisman and Oran, are basically garbage. They're garbage provinces. They confer no advantages. Low base tax, low production, mountainous, high autonomy, useless. Now, Morocco, it's a whole different story. If you notice the Moroccan province, Tafiliot, I believe that's how you pronounce it, has a gold mine. That is going to be absolutely instrumental in our overall strategy. Wow, this is interesting. Morocco is actually beating Portugal in a war. That's not something you see every day. They must have won a naval battle, and now they're just sort of running amok. Ideally, you'd want Portugal to beat Morocco. Now, another thing I should point out, you're not necessarily going to be able to have Portugal declare war on Morocco. Sometimes Morocco is at peace, in which case defeating them is going to be a lot harder. Wow, Morocco really is running amok. This is not ideal. Hopefully, ideally, I should say Portugal would be beating Morocco at this stage, but oftentimes, because Morocco abrogated their alliance with us, Portugal and Castile will be more likely to attack them. I'm just looking to see the outcome of this naval battle. Okay, that is good. Portugal's been able to defeat the Moroccan fleet. That means that when we declare war on Morocco later on, that's one less thing we have to worry about. So these rebels are about to spawn. Unfortunately, I've decided I'm not going to be able to deal with them because Morocco's at war and Tunis is a lot less reliable in offering aid against these rebels. So I go ahead and increase autonomy. Just have to bite the bullet. It's a little unfortunate, but we could not deal with rebels spawning at this stage. Tunis has not exactly offered up does not always offer up their approbation in dealing with rebels, so that's why I'm doing this. If Morocco wasn't at war, they would help us with the rebels like they did earlier. Part of the reason why those rebels are spawning as well is we have high war exhaustion, or we did. Here's another meaningless decision. Stability is a little low, but we have to save all our administrative power for coring. Here's another decision. So, Morocco is sort of in a stalemate now with Portugal. So, let me go over strategies how to defeat Morocco. There's a few things you have to bear in mind. Your faction leader is abysmal. Morocco will oftentimes win the tech race to military level 4, which is a big problem because that confers huge advantages. Our king is atrocious. We've set our national focus as administrative because we've got so many provinces to core. So you want to attack Morocco from a position of strength. The fact that they rescinded the alliance, like I said, means Castile and Portugal's more likely to declare war on them. Basically, in order to defeat Morocco, if Portugal and Castile don't declare war and they're not at war themselves, wait until you have at least military level 4 parity in terms of your military level tech with Morocco. Do not attack them if they have the military tech advantage, because the advantages from 4 to 3 are huge. It's 0.2 military tactics, I believe. But you can beat Morocco in a 1-to-1. You just have to take out a lot of loans, and you're going to see me doing that later on. Alright folks, I think I'm going to put a cut in here. I'm going to be releasing the next video literally the day after this one's going up, so you don't have to wait long to see part 2. The reason I'm breaking this up is I think it helps from the point of view of ease of viewing, and there are going to be a lot of videos. I'm going to get to the stage where I'm going to say, okay, strategy successfully completed. If you were in my at the stage I got to, you'd be able to easily get the achievement. But I'm going to be uploading the entire playthrough so that we do get the Re-Reconquista achievement, which is what this is all about. But for now, I'm going to put a cut in here. I'm Oscar Mike, and as always, thanks for watching.